Hey there, everyone. Mary Cristelli from PCC Wellness and Recreation, back for another week of wellness where you are. Again, here at the Lucero branch of the Pueblo State County Library. Tonight, we're going to do things a little different than we have in the past. Up until now, we've been doing a lot of movement-based stuff. We did throw a little bit of stress management and reduction in there with some deep breathing and stretching. But tonight, we're going to talk about healthy eating or nutrition. I think and have received feedback from folks that there's a lot of information out there. It's very overwhelming in some cases. It's conflicting. There's a lot to sift through. It's hard to figure out what is true, what's not. It seems like certain recommendations change so quickly. And then there are a lot of diet options out there, like different types of eating behaviors people can engage in. And so I wanted to talk to you all about that, and not so much about all the different ways that you can, eat, what different types of options that are out there, diet types that you can have, but really what's just a doable way to structure your eating habits and patterns and everything. And I want to say up front that this can be challenging, that making a change like this can seem overwhelming. It can seem like, I don't know if I can do that. I know for sure I can't go from what I'm at now, what I'm doing now, all the way to something completely different. And I wouldn't ask anyone to do that. That's really unrealistic. And your chances of long-term success drop significantly. So what this is just like making small changes over time. So tonight, if you're watching this, or whenever you see this, when you're watching this, thinking, okay, what feels realistic to me? What am I able to do? What pieces of this am I willing to do? Anytime we're trying to incorporate a new behavior into our life, the number one question we want to ask ourselves is, am I willing and am I able? So I guess it's two questions, but if you're able to, cool. If you're willing to, awesome, go ahead and move forward with it. If you're not able to, then we need to figure out finding out resources and stuff like that. And if there's an unwillingness, that's okay. Sometimes we're just not ready for that. So take what you can from this. Pick the pieces that sound like most realistic and doable to you, or things that are interesting to you, and then come back as you start to make different changes and you feel a little bit more ready for some of those things, or you can totally leave some of these things and not ever touch them again. So I just like to preface this type of conversation with that, just because I don't want anyone to feel like you're being told you have to do this, or get a little bit overwhelmed before we even start. So we're going to talk about just some ways to look at what you currently do as far as eating, and really we're going to focus on the big meals, the three big ones: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sort of what are some things you can do with your plate to make them a little bit healthier, and things like that. So some of you may be familiar with the previous recommendations of how we should have structured our eating behaviors from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and that was the food pyramid. And it turns out most people don't eat off of a pyramid, and the pyramid had some kind of odd ways that they were, saying you should eat. I think it was like 11 servings of grains and breads and stuff like that, and that is definitely different than what the recommendation is now. So they adjusted it, and then it became another type of a pyramid that was, I think, even more confusing to people, because it was just had these like color lines, so it looked like a rainbow, and then there was a staircase up the side, which was recommending people to incorporate physical activity, and that was really confusing and was hard to kind of grasp and everything. And so then they finally came up with the plate, and it's called MyPlate. And this has been around for several years now, and I think it is just a really excellent visual. And I don't actually have a diagram of my plate, but I am going to draw. I apologize for my art skills. I'm not really great at it, but it's mostly just a circle. So we now have what is called my plate, and they split the plate up into different categories based on the different food groups we have. And so there are 5, and in some cases we have 6 different food groups. And so that 6th food group are like healthy fats and oils and things like that. So that would be like olive oil, fats from avocado oil, walnut oil, stuff like that. We're not really going to get into that piece of it. We're going to talk about those 5 main food groups. So what those are fruits, vegetables, and I'm just going to put veggies, protein, grains, and dairy. So these are our 5 main food groups that we're wanting to incorporate in some way onto our plate. The dairy group, I will just put this on. Some folks don't eat dairy products. This is really that there are some nutrients that are in dairy products, calcium, vitamin D, things like that. And so I am going to talk about dairy alternatives, like non-dairy products that you can get those same vitamins and minerals that are found in the dairy products from. So I just want to say that we will talk about it, but it's not only cheeses and yogurts and milk and things like that. So the first thing when we're looking at our plate that we want to do, and this is to me is a really like great visual and simple way to see what's going on my plate. So I like to split it in half, and that's probably not perfectly half, but that's okay. So we're going to split the plate in half and see how much is half of my plate covered with fruits and vegetables. And we actually want a little bit more of our veggies. So I'll put a V for veggies and an F for fruit. But we want half of that plate covered with fruits and vegetables, some type. Within the fruit and vegetable category, there are starchy produces and there are non-starchy. And so we're really wanting to focus on some things that are, we don't want to incorporate a lot of starch. It's okay to have some starch-based produce on our plate. That would be things like sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, corn, that kind of stuff. With fruits, bananas have a high amount of starch in them. So it's okay to eat those things, but we want to eat those in moderation as far as those are concerned. So with our fruits and vegetables that we're looking for things like dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, which I'm actually not a fan of kale, but I know a lot of people are, so you could throw that on your plate. Zucchini, yellow squash, I'm drawing a blank, like peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, things like that. With our fruits, things like berries, apples, that kind of stuff. So covering half of our plate with those fruits and vegetables. Now, this might in and of itself seem like, whoa, that's a big ask. I am not a big vegetable eater. I don't really eat a lot of fruit either. I don't like vegetables. That's totally okay. This can be a big change. So slowly making those changes over time is how we want to do it. So if you're starting out and you're looking at this and like, oh, half of my plate, that is quite a bit, Mary. That's a big ask. Try to cover a fourth of it with the fruits and vegetables. Just start somewhere. Start somewhere that feels doable to you. Once we look at those fruits and vegetables and see, okay, how much do I have of these? Is half of my plate covered with those? And we feel super comfortable with that. We're rocking and rolling. Then we're going to look at the other side of our plate. And we're actually going to split that into quarters. And we want grains in 1/4 of it and protein in the other. So you'll notice that I have 5 food groups, but I've only got 4 things on the plate. And that is because dairy can also be considered a protein group. And sometimes in some models of the MyPlate, we'll see up here, like there will be a little circle with a D in it. And that's just a reminder that at some point in the day, we want to make sure we're getting whatever those dairy or dairy substitutes in our diet are. So on the big plate, these are the things we're looking for: fruits and veggies, grains, and proteins. With our grains, we're aiming to have at least 50% of them, so at least half of the grains we're eating all day long, to be whole grains. So those are things, I'm going to come over here, like brown rice, whole wheat options, oats. My mind, I just drew a blank, I apologize. Oats, things like that. So when we talk about whole wheat options, this is whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, whole wheat tortillas, those types of things. We're really looking to have our whole grains as opposed to 100% of the the white grain or the refined grains. And that's because these whole grains have a higher fiber content. They're more nutrient dense, so they have more nutrients in them. They haven't gone through like the bleaching process and had some of those nutrients stripped out of them. So they're more close to the actual source. And they just have a more complete nutrition profile. So we're wanting to do at least 50%. That might not be possible. I really like tortillas, and so I prefer them over whole wheat tortillas. So I won't incorporate those into my day, but that's okay because I also eat a lot of oatmeal and I eat a lot of brown rice. So looking for those things of, I'm not going to do this with my bread, but I can definitely do it with the rice. Just finding those little things that you're comfortable with making those switches to. And it's only that, like in a whole day, only 50% of them. So that's what this 50 down here means, is that our whole grains for the whole entire day is 50%. So that's what we're looking for with grains. A serving size of our grains is going to be about half a cup. What that would look like is you could make a fist, and that would be like, if you put your fist down next to it, it's going to be about the same. This is like an average adult fist, not like a child fist or anything. This is for an adult. Or the size of a tennis ball or a baseball. That's what that half cup serving would look like for those grains. And that would be one serving size. And that's what we want to have in those meals, is just one serving size of that. Because again, this is just one single meal. This would be, for example, dinner. Our final food group on this plate is our proteins. And there are a lot of options for protein, including dairy products, so cheese, yogurt, those types of things. Those do milk. They have protein in them. We also have our common ones that whenever we talk about this in front of groups of people, and they're able to provide that feedback in real time, are animal-based proteins. So we've got meat, so red meat, lamb, venison, veal, that type of stuff. Poultry, so turkey or chicken, and then seafood, fish, salmon, cod, tilapia, shrimp, lobster, that kind of stuff. So those are our animal-based proteins. But then there are other types of proteins. We also have eggs, tofu, beans, lentils, legumes. So that legumes would be like peas and beans and that type of stuff. Nuts, almond butter, nut butter, those options as well. So there are a lot of different protein options out there, and we get more protein in our diet than we actually need. I think we live in a culture that is very protein focused and oriented and dominant, and protein is really great for our body. It helps repair and rebuild tissue. It can help keep us from getting sick and things like that. It helps make hormones. So protein is really good for us, but we do unfortunately eat more protein than we actually need to. So when we're looking at our plate with our protein in particular, one serving size of chicken or turkey is actually just the size of your palm and about the same thickness. And so that is a serving size of protein would be 3 ounces of that meat, of steak or chicken, fish, anything like that. And it's going to be the size and the thickness of your palm, or like a deck of cards. That would be another option to kind of gauge what is my portion size. And so when we're talking about these options and kind of thinking, okay, how do I want my plate to look? I want 50% with fruits and veggies, a little bit of grain, a little bit of protein. It's important to be mindful of the portion sizes as well. So that's why I'm talking to you with some of these specifically about what those portion sizes are, is because I think we get what is commonly referred to as portion distortion. We see it as what it is, and that's not what's technically or necessarily healthy for our body. Is that we might be getting all of the correct food groups and getting our body all the nutrients that it needs, but we might be eating more than we need to, and in some cases we might be eating not as much as we need to. So being mindful of those portion sizes, and that's why I'm talking about the baseball with the grains and the deck of cards or the palm of your hand with those animal-based proteins. Some other portion size things would be with the proteins, as 1 egg would be considered a serving size. If you're eating something like peanut butter or even like a handful of almonds, that's going to be what, a golf ball would be the good way to gauge. Like if it looks the shape and size of a golf ball, then you know that's the correct portion size. So that's the way that when we're looking at our plate, kind of how we want to set it up. I'm throwing a lot of information I hope that it's not overwhelming or confusing or anything, and I'm not really tracking a linear pattern here, so I apologize for that. But when we're looking at the plate, this is what we're wanting. Fruits and vegetables on one side, grains in one corner, protein in the other corner. When we're looking at our dairy options, this could be a glass of milk. It could be like a half cup serving of Greek yogurt. Again, that's going to be that tennis ball, baseball size that we're looking at. It could be cubes of cheese, and so that would be 3 dice. So if you think about what a dice looks like, it would be 3 of those. So being mindful about those portion sizes with it. With our dairy options, we want to look for things that are low fat, and that's because high fat dairy products and regular dairy products mostly have a lot of saturated fat in them. That's the same with our animal proteins, so our red meats and then things like chicken and turkey, is that they have higher amounts of saturated fat. Saturated fat is not necessarily bad for you, but it can lead to higher cholesterol, overall cholesterol, higher amounts of those low density lipoproteins, which is called bad cholesterol. And so saturated fat can increase those levels of that bad cholesterol in your body. Some levels of it is fine. Our body needs fat to function properly. When we're looking at fat, and we won't get too much into those, we want to go for things that are unsaturated fats, which we find in avocados and in walnuts, almonds, cashews, any kind of nut really, peanut butter, almond butter, that type of stuff. So being mindful with our dairy choices, and if you are a dairy eater and you love that, looking for those low-fat options. If you are not a dairy consumer, that's okay. Nuts and seeds, beans and lentils, those things all have the components, the nutrient components that dairy products have in them. So those could be some substitution. So if you don't drink milk or eat cheese or anything like that, but you do eat pumpkin seeds and chia seeds and like walnuts and things like that, you're still getting the same nutrient properties from those, the combination of those, that you would if you were eating dairy. So it's okay to take things out of your diet, especially if it makes you sick or you have some sort of like a moral or an ethical opposition to it. That is totally okay. When we're being mindful about the things that we're eating and we're looking to get like complete plate with all of these food options, when we do this, then our body is going to get the nutrients that it needs, the macronutrients, those carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, as well as our micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals. If we're eating this plate, this MyPlate that they've set up this way that it's really easy to read and look at, if we're getting that, then our body is going to have the variety of foods that we need to have a complete healthy diet. I forgot to mention this earlier, and so I'll say it just real quick, is that with our fruits and vegetables, trying to switch up the colors that you're eating, so eating carrots, eating green leafy vegetables, eating eggplant, having blueberries and strawberries and apples and the different colors. Those different colored fruits and vegetable options have different types of nutrients in them, so the more colorful your plate is, the more variety that you're getting, the more complete of a nutrient profile you're going to have. So that is the information on MyPlate and kind of how to look at what you've got on your plate now and make some adjustments if you want, see where am I at and what can I change, what would I like to change, what's interesting to me, and giving that a shot. If you have any questions, please let us know. Talk to your librarians. They have some really awesome books here. They actually have this little one. It's in my eyesight. It's called That's My Carrot. It's a children's book. It looks like 2 rabbits who are gardeners. It seems very appropriate for this because we were talking about fruits and veggies. But stop by the library or visit their website and see if there's any information, more information if you're looking for that with your librarians. I hope you have a really excellent evening and an awesome next couple of weeks, and I will see you soon. Take it easy.